Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CPRIT GMP. So in today's demonstration, we are going to walk through how to create a new user profile, update that user profile, and request a new organization within the CPRIT GMP. So as you can see, we are currently on the GMP homepage. And for the first step, we are going to register our user by clicking on this blue register button in the top right-hand corner. Upon doing so, you should be directed to this screen to create your account. And if you scroll to the center of the screen, you should reach this page that has information for you to initially register your user. One thing I do want to call out here is that the first name field is not required, but it is highly, highly, highly recommended that you do input this information to ensure that your user profile is as complete as possible and to minimize downstream errors when your account is within the new system. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out this information and paste in my email here. Our user that we'll be registering is Miss Jolene Doe. So I'm going to now click this Create Account button. And upon doing so, the page should automatically refresh and direct me to this instructional page that is telling me to check my email. So what just happened is in the background, a link was generated to reset the password for this new user, and that link was routed to the email that we just registered with. So I'm going to go into my email inbox, and sure enough, here is that email. So you're going to be looking for an email from the CPRIT GMP no reply that says, welcome to the CPRIT grant management platform, finish registering your account. So I'm going to scroll down here, and in the email, I have this informational text that's telling me that there's other resources for your usage, whether you want to use the GMP resource page or go through the help desk. But for today's demonstration, we are going to be resetting our password. Do want to call out that this should be done within one setting because this link that was generated to complete the self-registration will expire within 7 calendar days. So please ensure that you do this as soon as possible upon receiving this email. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and click on this link, and in a new tab, we should be directed to a new screen flow to set up our password. Okay, and here we are. So the CPRIT GMP will require multi-factor authentication, and this can be done in 2 pathways. The first one is through an authenticator app, such as Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, Authy, or Duo Mobile, or through a passkey. I'm personally going to do a passkey because that is what is the most easiest for me, but both of these methods are supported. So I'm going to select my passkey, and it's going to ask me to register it. So I'm going to click on that button here. Okay, and so it's trying to validate my account and verify the identity. So I'm going to go back to that email that I registered with. And sure enough, I got an email asking me to validate that I am trying to build in my passkey. So going through this email, I'm going to find my verification code and copy it. Go over to this screen here and paste it in. If you choose the passkey and you are waiting for the code and it has not been generated, please give it a few moments. As you saw, it was quite quick, but in some cases, depending on your network, it can be slower. So please make sure that if you don't receive it, you do wait a few moments, you refresh your screen and check your spam. So that being said, and now that I have my code, I'm going to go ahead and click this verify button to continue with the process to actually register my passkey. So I'm going to click this button here. All right, and I am going to choose a PIN. I'm on a Microsoft device, so this is the experience that I will get. Okay, so now my passkey has been saved for this email address for this domain, which is expected. So we're going to click OK. Right, and with that, we've reached the final step, which is actually setting our password. So the screen flow here is you first set up your MFA and then you do your password. You're going to go ahead and click this blue button here in the center of the screen. And upon doing so, you should be directed to this page. Now, I know that when you initially look at this, it may seem like an error. It is not. The can't display page is something we are working on, but in the meantime, this finished logging in button is effective and what we need to do to finish setting up our password. So you're going to select that. Right. And now we're actually here, we're going to establish our password. We have some fairly standard password parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. we'll just click change. All right, and with that, congratulations, you are now a registered user within the CPRIT GMP. So right off the bat, you're going to notice some new additions to this actual user interface. The first one is now, instead of the register and login button, we see that we are logged in. There is a small icon with your user initials and my profile tab here with a small caret. And when you click on your profile, you should be directed to a new screen to actually update your user profile information. And actually, if I were to go back to the home page, there's also this banner that's telling me that I need to update it. So whether you click the link here or here, you'll be directed to that page. This is the next step in the flow. And what it is doing is completing your total user profile within the GMP. Now, if you remember, when we first registered our user, all we registered with was our first name, last name, and email address. Obviously, there's several other attributes that need to be registered to your user in the system, and so that is what this screen is going to do. So starting from the top to bottom, we have a salutation field. So I'm going to select mine. And anytime in the GMP you see this default value banner, please make sure that you accept it. That is a requirement to actually submit your form, and it is a native part of this experience. So scrolling down, I'm going to skip the middle initial and accept that default value. I've already added my last name. I'm going to accept this default value. And now I'm going to input my address. Okay, and so as you can see in this form, some of the fields are required, some of them are non-required. Obviously, you do not have to complete these, but if you do have this information handy and want it associated to your profile, please feel free to do so. But for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to skip these. We do still have to accept the default value though. And then at the end of the form, we have some standard demographic information. So just add this as such. Okay, perfect. And so when you complete the form, you should see these two options here to either discard your changes or save as a draft. We are going to save as a draft. This is a feature for all of the forms that you will complete in the GMP. It is a requirement to save your changes first as a draft in order to submit. As you can see, even though the form is complete, you can see this progress bar is fully green. We don't have that submit button yet, and that's because we haven't saved this as a draft. So we're going to do that first. Okay, perfect. And with that, oh, actually, I forgot something. So this form is one of the few in the GMP where when you save as a draft, it actually automatically saves to your profile. So this is one of the few forms that will not have a submit button. I misspoke there. So actually, we just already did what we needed to do. This form is now complete. And in the back end, your user profile will now have all of this new information saved. One thing I do want to call out is that if this information were to save or change in the future, all you would have to do is go back, log in, and go to your profile tab here, and just go through the form here and make whatever change that you wish. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'll just update a field we didn't complete before, so the middle initial. All right, save as a draft. And so that automatically updated my form information in the back end. So anything changes in the future, you're absolutely free to update it dynamically as you wish. So with that being said, the next step that we are going to take here is actually associating our user with an organization in the GMP. To do so, we are going to click on the dashboard tab here. And upon doing so, you should be directed to this view with 3 tabs. So ultimately, this is going to be your centralized repository for all of your associated records in the GMP, whether it's your organizations, applications, or awards. Obviously, this is a new user that we just created, so they do not have any of these, but later in the future, these will populate dynamically as you create new applications or receive awards. Given that this is a new user, they are not automatically associated to an organization. So we're going to need to do that by clicking on this Request New Organization button here. All right. And when you click that, it will automatically create a case that is going to be submitted for your user to route to CPRIT for review. And as you can see, it was created in draft status, which is expected because we obviously haven't made any changes to this yet. So you can scroll down and go to the center console here and find your organization. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, we are going to show what would happen if your organization did not appear here. So we'll say Joe's Company. Okay, and obviously that's not a real organization, so we can't find it. So with that being said, we're going to check this box. And to request a new organization, we are going to save and continue to the next page. So like I said before, in the GMP, it is required to save as a draft as you progress through the form. So we're going to do so, which will enable us to continue to the next page. And now we're on another standard form that has information for us to update. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these out. This is the same interface as before in the sense that we have required and non-required fields and also default value banners that do need to be accepted to progress with the form. So we're just going to go through here. And similar to the user profile, this isn't binding. If this information changes in the future, you would simply go through the help desk and submit a new case to update your organization details. So please make sure that you register with what you have currently for your organization, but know that if something were to change in the future, you can easily request updates as necessary through the help desk. This will be an academic institution for the sake of the demo. Right. And then here, I do want to call out that we do have specific restrictions around email domains. CPRIT will not allow the usage of public email domains like Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook. So if your organization does have a custom domain, this is where you would register it. For the purposes of this demonstration, we will say Joe's Company. .gov. And if we had multiple, you would just click enter and list them all separately in a new line. So we'll say Joe's as an example, and so forth. Once again, the Save as Draft button is a requirement. And as you can see, this is a form that has a submit button because this is actually going to need to be a case that is reviewed by the CPRIT team. So I'm going to go up here, make sure that everything looks good. I can see that I've completed all of the required fields, both using this progress bar and then also this little icon that tells me the completed required fields and then the total fields, including those that are not required. And so all of this is complete and is accurate for this registration. And so now I'm going to submit. And this is one of the forms in the system that does require a submission. So upon doing so, that should submit this form and its case to the CPRIT team to receive my request and respond within 1 business day. So with that being said, we are now going to go to the last part of this demonstration, which is threads. So as you can see here, there's this new tab on our case after we submit that's called Thread, and we're just going to refresh really quickly. Okay, perfect. And so when you submit your case, you can see that that draft status automatically updated to submitted. And on this page here is where you can actually post and interact with the CPRIT team as you wish. So Thread is a capability that kind of serves like an instant messenger chat or an email within the actual GMP, where anything you post here will notify the CPRIT team. And they will be able to review the thread and respond as necessary. So for the purposes of this demonstration, we will say hello. And as you can see here, there's a lot of different parameters for how you can format the information. You can make it rich text, bolding it, italicizing it, formatting it, however as you wish. And there's also an optional file upload. So if there was something that you forgot to include in your case, or you are submitting a case because you're having issues with something, you could upload a screenshot of the error you're receiving. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. It is one file per thread post, just as a note. So I'm going to post this. Right. And so I can see that my user Jolene Doe posted this message at this date at this time. And so now this will eternally live on the thread for the CPRIT team to review and respond as necessary. I do want to note that at the end of the case lifecycle, when this case is ultimately approved or disapproved, the thread will automatically archive and become read-only 7 days after the date at which that decision was made. So if you wanted to update your organization information in the future, you wouldn't be able to come back to this case and then post on the thread. You would have to go and submit a new case through the help desk. So just as a reminder that the thread will be active during the case's life cycle during review, but after a final decision has been made and it's been closed, it will ultimately expire. So with that being said, that concludes the demonstration for which we are to show today. We walked through how to register a new user profile, how to request a new organization, and also how to use our case and thread functionality. The one thing I do want to note is that what I showed you today is if you are a completely new user within the GMP. If you are a migrated user and registering on Monday, August 17th or Tuesday, August 18th, you will have a slightly different experience. What you are going to see here is an email that is similar to what we just saw here. However, migrated users that are associated with organizations that have been migrated from either CGMS or CARS will receive the same welcome email to claim your accounts and set up your passwords. Please make sure that if you are a migrated user, you are checking your inbox for the welcome emails before completing the self-registration process in the system. So if you are an organization that has been migrated and you've been notified as such, you will not go through the same screen flow where you are going to click that register button. Instead, you will have automatically received the email to reset your password. So please make sure that you do not create a net new account. You will already have one in the GMP because of the migration. You'll just have to reset your password so that way you can actually use it within the new system. With that being said, that brings us to the end of this demonstration. We wish you the best of luck and thank you for your usage of the GMP and for walking through this process with me.